As a 10-year-old little boy clings to life in the hospital, one of his accused abusers faced a judge and will stay in jail on no bond.
We are learning new, very disturbing information about this case that detectives called child torture. West 2's David Jones was in court today where Andre Walker's wife also took the stand.
Yeah, she was the sole witness called by Andre Walker's defense team. Walker was the boyfriend of the now arrested mother of the boys, Kimberley Mills, but his wife came to testify, and it was revealed in court today that Walker has an entirely separate family in Palm Bay. So as this abuse case continues to become unveiled in court, that little boy, that little 10-year-old boy, is still clinging to life in the hospital. For the first time, Andre Walker entered a Lake County courtroom to meet a judge face to face and a hearing to determine whether he would be allowed to bond out of jail. He faced the little boy's family, and he also faced his wife, testifying on his behalf. The state laid out their case, attempting to prove both Walker and the boy's mother, Kimberley Mills, were in on the abuse. They started with the detectives. The first detective testified to investigators' interview with the boy's little brother after the older brother was dropped off at the hospital by Mills and Walker with numerous burns and bruises and cardiac arrest.
He stated that night that was being punished in the living room, and then after that he was taken into the garage with Andre, and who he also said that it was mom's boyfriend. He was taken into the garage and punished further by Andre in the garage.
He says the little brother told investigators weights were dropped on the 10-year-old boy, who was duct taped to a ladder with his hands above his head. The second detective spoke about a dense copper wire found in the bedroom of one of the boys.
I learned later that it was used as a form of so-called discipline against the boys.
And how was it used?
In terms of hitting the boys through spanking and I believe on their head as well.
The defense maintained there was no concrete evidence Walker was involved.
Those pictures show that there is prolonged abuse to that child. There is no evidence that Mr. Walker took part in any of that abuse.
The judge ultimately sided with the state.
The court finds there is a substantial probability that the defendant committed the offenses as charged. Also, the nature and circumstances of the offenses and the nature of the injuries to which are egregious.
The judge decided not to grant bond. The Tavares Police Department expressing gratitude to the state attorney's office and the judge, with the state attorney saying in part, quote, "This defendant will not be a danger to our community while he awaits trial. We hope this is the first step in obtaining justice for the horrific crimes committed by this defendant." Now, Walker and Mills are both expected back here in Lake County Court on aggravated child abuse charges coming up later this month. As for that little 10-year-old boy's condition, he's still listed as critical. It was said in court today that since that night he was dropped off at the hospital, he has not regained consciousness. Tavares police stand ready to upgrade the charges if necessary.
Well, Tavares police released photographs from inside the home where they say two boys were abused, one to the point of cardiac arrest. It's just a horrific case. Nearly 2 weeks later, that little boy remains in critical condition. You spoke with a child abuse expert who says we all have a role to play.
I did. He says if you see something, to say something and make sure to call the proper authorities to investigate. That little 10-year-old remains in the trauma unit at the hospital. We saw yesterday a Lake County judge deny the bond for the boyfriend of the boy's mother. And today we're seeing these chilling pictures that reveal what police say happened inside of this home. We do want to warn you, these photos do depict objects used in alleged child abuse. New images released by Tavares police in a case officers say, quote, shook us to our core. A 6-foot ladder, a 10-pound weight, duct tape. Police say all used to restrain and injure the 10-year-old with his hands tied above his head. A red sweatshirt with duct tape around the arms and gray sweatpants with tape around the ankles were found outside in the trash bin.
In this case, a
10-year-old boy was brought to the ER by the defendant and the boy's mother in cardiac arrest.
Another photo shows a thick, insulated copper wire found in the 10-year-old's bedroom. Investigators say the younger brother detailed the abuse, claiming they were beat with the wire. The boy's mother, Kimberley Mills, and her boyfriend, Andre Walker, both face aggravated child abuse charges.
Many of the visible signs that a normal person would see can be so subtle, but some of them can be obvious.
Dr. Matthew Seibel is the previous director of the Child Protection Team in Central Florida and a pediatric hospitalist.
Anybody can report. It's easy.
Seibel says the physical signs can be obvious to the casual observer. Bruising, burns, weight loss, other things.
You're looking for more behavioral changes in children, which can oftentimes tip you off to changes in their home, changes regarding the care that they receive at home.
He says if there's ever a question, you should call Florida's Child Abuse Hotline.
There's a concern from a neighbor, from a teacher, from a relative. You call the abuse hotline. That's what it's there for. And they are required to investigate, and you can do it anonymously.
And the police department out here in Tavares is collecting gift card donations for the boys and for their family. They're asking anyone who has those donations to drop them off. The boy's father did come down to the state from out of state to be by his son's bedside, but you can drop off those donations if you have them here at the Tavares Police Complex.
The man accused of abusing a 10-year-old little boy along with his girlfriend, the boy's mother, will not be granted bond.
Andre Walker and his girlfriend were arrested after leaving the boy at a hospital in cardiac arrest just last month.
So we heard detectives describe some of the items the boy's little brother alleges Walker or their mom would use to punish them. And we also heard from Walker's wife, who he separated from. She testified in his defense, but it wasn't enough to get him released on bond. Now, just a warning, some of what you're about to hear may be disturbing to you.
Egregious.
That's how a judge described the injuries a 10-year-old little boy suffered. Detectives with the Tavares Police Department allege it was at the hands of the boy's mother, Kimberley Mills, and her boyfriend, Andre Walker, saying they left the boy at Advent Health Waterman one night in February, with a detective testifying Tuesday to the internal injuries hospital staff said the boy had.
Internal bleeding in his stomach area, and with the raccoon eyes, they said it was possible with the head trauma.
Walker's charges were changed from accessory to child abuse on the 10-year-old to child abuse on the boy and his 8-year-old brother. Detectives testified the 8-year-old was interviewed by DCF and described various items Walker or their mother used to punish the boys: a flashlight, boxing gloves, and a rubber-wrapped copper wire. The night the 10-year-old was brought to the hospital, his brother said he was being punished by having weights dropped on him.
He was having the weights dropped on his stomach. He was duct taped to a ladder that was in the garage, and his hands were duct tape above his head.
Detectives testified duct tape, a ladder, and weights were found inside of the home. Walker's wife was the only person called to testify in his defense. She said he had never been in trouble with the law.
In the 16 years that you've known Mr. Walker, have you been in fear of him?
No.
Have you ever, do you share children with Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Have you ever been in fear of your children's safety?
Never.
Walker's defense attorney called the case and the photos of the boy's injuries tragic and said they signified long-term abuse.
There is no evidence that Mr. Walker took part in any of that abuse.
She accused the state of relying on hearsay evidence in the case they made Tuesday. But the judge said
there was photographic evidence to corroborate, substantial photographic evidence to corroborate the hearsay testimony.
And ruled
the court finds that the state has met its burden, and I will grant the state's motion for pretrial detention.
So now both Walker and the boy's mother are being held in the Lake County Jail. And as far as how that little boy is doing tonight, detectives testified today that that little boy was unconscious when he was brought to the hospital last month, and to this day has not regained consciousness.
The 10-year-old boy, detectives say, was abused by his own mother, and her boyfriend has died.
Yeah, very sad story tonight. That little boy had been fighting for his life for weeks. Michelle, this started when he was first taken to the hospital in late February.
That's right, Luana. We just got this heartbreaking update just over an hour ago. Tavares police say the little boy was the victim of unimaginable abuse and neglect at the hands of of those who were meant to take care of him. And now the police are vowing to get justice for him. First told you about this case last month after police say the little boy was left at the hospital by his mother, Kimberley Mills, and her boyfriend, Andre Walker. Police say he had severe bruising and burn marks all over his body. They would later find out that he was being tortured in his own home, they say. The victim's brother told police that Walker would punish him by dropping weights on him and duct taping him to a ladder with his hands above his head. Police say the other brother, who was only 9 years old, was also being abused in similar ways. The Tavares Police Department started a donation drive for the two boys, saying that the donations would help the family focus on the little boy's health. Mills and Walker are both still in custody. Police say that they are working with the state attorney's office now to upgrade those charges against the both of them now that the 10-year-old boy has died.
We begin with sad breaking news tonight. A 10-year-old boy who was allegedly tortured by his own mother and her boyfriend has died.
The abuse allegedly happened inside the family's home in Tavares.
Of course, it is truly heartbreaking, and no one wanted to hear this result. The little boy had been fighting for his life in the hospital here for nearly a month, but unfortunately, he did not make it. Now, the police department released a statement tonight saying, in part, with profound sorrow, the Tavares Police Department announces the tragic passing of a 10-year-old boy, a victim of unimaginable abuse and neglect at the hands of those who were meant to take care of him. This innocent child's life was marked by unspeakable suffering, and his loss has deeply shaken our community and everyone involved in this case. Now, these photos from Tavares Police paint a picture of the horror that this child was going through. You'll see a ladder and a piece of child's clothing with tape on it. The crime scene also shows a 10-pound dumbbell wrapped in duct tape. Tavares Police now say the boy's mother, Kimberley Mills, and her boyfriend, Andre Walker, taped her 10-year-old son to that ladder and dropped the weight on his stomach as punishment. They took the boy to the hospital when he stopped breathing about a month ago on February 22nd. But police say Mills had scared her son into hiding the abuse from his teachers and friends for some time. Now, Tavares Police is working with the state attorney's office to enhance charges for the boy's mother and her boyfriend.